Welcome to round two of the 2005 Rolex Sports Car Series today for Homestead Miami Speedway. There are going to be some keys to winning this race, Dorsey, and we look at them there on the screen.
First of all, controlled aggression. Let me talk about this. There's 43 cars out here at varying speeds, two different classes. You cannot get to the front by crashing your way through. You're going to have to get through fast, get through clean.
Talk us through.
Homestead is very tricky indeed. I told you we're going to have some trouble. We're going to have it right here in this area. Turn two. As you break into there, it's very slippery. Another place where cars have trouble right here between 6 and 7. Now the NASCAR banking, bottom lane is 10 degrees, 15 in the center, a full 20 degrees at the top. And with these 43 cars, there'll be 3 and 4 wide before this day is over.
Pace car is in pit lane as the cars line up. You see the hole beside Darren Law there where the 77 car should be as they roll down looking for the starter, and there's the green. As the cars accelerate away, the Daytona prototypes will start first. The GT class will start behind, and Darren Law, a good jump and a good lead, but side by side into 2, and it looks like Mike Borkowski and the number 6 car, pardon me, will take over second place.
Turn 2 is really a tricky corner. Turn 1 is very fast, 2 is very slippery. We'll see trouble there before the day's over. These guys keeping it clean, however, on the first couple corners.
Well, Dorsey, and you talk about the weather here. It's been cool all weekend long as you get a good look at the GT start as they come by. It was a separated start, and Brian Sellers, a huge jump in that 61 Porsche as he leads down into turn 1. Side-by-side action as they go down to Andrew Davis in the 73 car on the outside. He's not going to get the best of that, and he'll drop to third.
And they're rubbing each other right now going into turn 3.
Oh, and a great move by Davis. Back up the inside to retake second place, but it stacks up the field behind him, and Brian Sellers will pull away. Back in Daytona prototypes, the 6 car, Mike Borkowski in front of 01 of Luis Diaz, and Darren Law holding on to that. They desperately want to lead this first lap. They struggled with those Porsches and that Fab car last year, but Darren Law doing a great job in qualifying, got out there, got the job done, and got the pole, and side by side through the banking onto the front straightaway.
First time through that banking, up to 20 degrees by the wall, and these cars 174 miles per hour right here turning into turn 1.
Borkowski has a look underneath Law as they get into turn 1. He thinks better of it. These guys, smart professionals, a little wiggle out of Law. Borkowski's going to look up the inside. Just as I said, he's going to be patient. He looks to pounce.
That was at turn 2. You're going to have to really watch that. It's very sandy here in Florida. When cars get off, they drop the wheels off. They bring that sand on the surface, and we'll see cars sliding off before this day is over.
Well, Dorsey, you see all this battle going on up front, and you wonder, I got to ask you, you know, you don't want to lose a position at the start, but what's really the goal? It's not to gain positions, is it? Is it just to hold on to what you've got?
I mean, I always like taking the beginning of a race and being very aggressive for maybe 3 or 4 laps and then settling down to some sort of a reasonable pace. You can make up a position right away if a guy's not ready for you to pounce. Right here, Borkowski up the inside into the hairpin.
Oh, they almost touched. Borkowski's going to get it, and now we'll see that Darren Law Porsche, the 58 Red Bull Rumos machine, has a new engine in it this weekend, that 3.9-liter flat 6 Porsche, and we'll see what kind of top speed it has. They said it didn't really seem any faster in a straight line, but it was more drivable, more torque. But it looks like Borkowski, as they go through the gears, able to pull a little bit away through the banking.
A lot of unknowns about that engine as far as reliability, but look at here, it doesn't have much top-end power. The Lexus now going up the inside. Really didn't have a good run there on the banking.
Yeah, it's almost like he missed a gear or something as they got into the top gears. The young Mexican Luis Diaz able to pull alongside of him, really uncontested as they got to turn 1, and now Diaz sets his sights on Borkowski in front.
Now remember, because of the 2 laps of qualifying, that this whole field is really kind of, we've got trouble here. That's turn 2, I believe.
The 07, and that's the 77.
And the doors open on the 77. Now that's the car that started from pit lane. He gets going again, but this car's in the gravel trap. The 07, a brand new car. There's
the 77.
door.
Yeah, the door open on that car. I don't see a lot of damage to it right now, Dorsey, but Bobby in the car right now. Both the drivers, Bobby and Golan, former FIA GT champions. Actually, one of them in 03, one of them in 04. These guys certainly know how to pedal a race car, but they had a long way to go. Remember, they had to start from pit lane and work their way up through that Daytona prototype field to try to get back to the front. Take a look and see if we can see what happens.
Here we go down. Oh, it's already happened, unfortunately. The 77's going the wrong direction. Gets into the back of the 5, sends him off the court. Remember the sand I told you about? The 5 got lucky right there. This is a straight drive in.
Well, you certainly want to see what's happening behind you, but that's not the way to go about doing it. As the 07 car sits in the gravel, competition will continue when we come back to Homestead right after this. Hang on, guys. Under caution yet again, the 10 car, your Daytona winning car is in. Calvin Fish is there.
Well, they're taking advantage of this caution period as Max Angelelli taking over from Wayne Taylor there. Fresh set of Hoosier tires. One thing that these teams have really had to manage this week is just 5 sets of tires for the complete weekend. Now, they've been mandated. This is the harder compound. At Daytona, they had 2 compounds to run. This is the harder Hoosier 60 compound. Everyone's using it. So fresh tires, fuel, Max Angelelli behind the wheel. Chris?
Calvin Joey Hand in the 21 BMW also was in. Real quick stop for him. Just fuel, no tires, no driver change, so Joey's back out.
Good news for the 10 car with Max the Axe Angelelli, as we like to call him. Angelelli last year, even though they did not win this race, did have the fastest race lap. How much faster was it? Almost 0.8 of a second faster than any other Daytona prototype driver last year. Here's why the caution. The 39 car of Jim Matthews in the gravel trap. Back to his left, there's going to be another car. See if we can see what happens here, Dorsey.
This in the brake zone at the end of the long straightaway. That's Paul Mears coming in all locked up. He nails Matthews. Matthews had nothing to do with this wreck. That mistake made by Mears comes in just way too hot, locks the brakes up, and clobbers the 39, both of them in the gravel trap.
Mears has made it to pit lane. They'll do service on this car. Look for damage in the front end. That's where he made the contact with Matthews. Calvin Fish.
Well, down here, and Paul Mears Jr.'s made his way back, Brian, and they're doing tire change. There's a slight cut in the front spoiler. I don't see much damage to the actual splitter, so it shouldn't take away too much downforce here on the front end of the car. They're going to try and get some of the gravel out from underneath and try and get Paul Mears back underway, but he's lost a lap. Mike Borkowski, when he gets back in, is going to have a lot of work to do today.
Now, disappointment for that entire team. Mike Borkowski, a great job in his opening stint, handed over to Paul Mears, and that one little mistake has already put them a lap down. Even though it just looks like cosmetic damage up front, Dorsey, you got to wonder if you get some suspension damage also. And that's a look at the back end of the 61 car, the Porsche of Brian Sellers. Chris Neville, you're there. What's up, bud?
Brian, that's right. Our pole-sitting GT car, Brian Sellers, has brought it back into pit lane. More problems for this car. It looks like it's overheating, something we typically don't see with these GT Porsches. It's not that warm of a day down here in Miami, but these guys are spending a lot of time in pit lane. Peter Barron was hoping for a good day, so I don't know if we're going to see these guys back later in the year.
The mechanic there, he was kind of slashing away at his throat like we're done.
And the 2 cars back in, and Calvin has made it back down to Crawford. Calvin?
Well, it's now Andy Wallace behind the wheel, but they are really behind the 8 ball here today. They've gone down a lap, maybe more. Milk has jumped out. The car looks like it's in good shape. You see a slight slit in the side pod there. That shouldn't affect the aerodynamics too much, even on this high-speed super speedway. So Andy Wallace in behind the wheel. He needs a miracle today, Brian.
Well, and no flaming burnout there from Andy Wallace like we saw Milka Duno have as she left a little while ago. If anybody can get it done, there's Milka Duno. If anybody can get it done, it would be Andy Wallace. We certainly saw some stellar drives from him last year. And Dorsey, you got to experience a ride with Andy Wallace around the track on Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, Andy was my old teammate. We've shared cars before, but never side by side. That's for sure. He gave me a good ride around here, so I got a great feel for what it's like to be in one of these DPs. Look at all the debris right in that area. Unbelievable amount of junk on the track right now. Calvin?
Well, after Andy Wallace left, you said there was no fire, but underneath the car there was still some fluid here, so they must have some kind of overflow situation, like you said, Dawes, that's emanating from this car during a fuel stop, but he didn't refire the car and fire it into life. Literally, you can see, just a safe start. They'll get some kitty litter down there and dry this thing out.
It's interesting to see that fuel leak. You wonder if maybe somewhere between the fuel filler and the tank itself, there might be a loose fitting, because it only seems to drip as the fuel goes in the car and they leave. Seem to have no problems out on the racetrack. We saw the fire that Milka Duno had when on one of her pit stops, a fire that we thought perhaps led to a fueling problem. As the car leaves, there you see the huge explosion of flame off the back of the car, even trailing flame as he comes down into turn one. A very scary moment, and we're back to green, and Christian Fittipaldi with another big jump on this restart, takes a big lead into turn one, followed by the Brumos, the number 8 car of Bert Frizzell, and then we saw the 19 of Memo Gidley as the rest of the field streams through.
That's motorized mayhem in the GT class back there. These guys really dicing it up. Look over here to the outside, right there. That's all full of gravel, grass, and everything. That Corvette's in danger of spinning by going out that far.
And even a little further up the racetrack, a lot of dirt on the side of the road. Drivers not able to drive exactly the line they want to drive. That could have a big impact, especially as they get into traffic 3 abreast as they come through the infield portion of the racetrack into the braking zone. And definitely some guys wanting to get to the front.
That was the 10 diving in there. Max the Axe, we call him. And that's what, here's some more diving, speaking of that.
Looks like Miami rush hour traffic. You see the 59 of JC France trying to go around the outside of one of the GT cars. Nothing doing there in the slower corner, but as they come down the longer straightaway, he's able to use the power of that Porsche engine, and here comes Andy Wallace.
One thing Max the Axe is known for in that 10 car, we saw it last year, he is demonic in the brake zone. What I mean by that, he gets the job done. He can get in there deeper than anyone, and he pulls off those moves to the inside, and he does it somehow pretty cleanly, usually anyway.
Andy Wallace has the bit in his teeth, and we saw, as we mentioned earlier, stellar drives from Andy Wallace last year. There's the battle for second place, Bert Frizzell, then Darren Law. Frizzell has gotten Darren Law, moved him back to third. Memo Gidley is third in that line, 4th on the racetrack, and he wants to take the fight to Darren Law next.
Well, I know some people will want to disagree with what I'm about to say, but for me, it's very good to see this Porsche to be this strong again. That new 3.9 motor, well, that car's been a mid-packer. Now it's running right there strong in second place, and that's good to see.
Well, what Darren has said about that car, we mentioned a little bit earlier, a little bit of a lockup there on Bert Frizzell as they came into the corner. What Darren Law had said about that new Porsche power plant, that 3.9 liter, not so much top speed, but torque. And on a racetrack like this, where you've got to have that grunt to get out of the corner, the 94 GT car turned around there, that Porsche engine, that 3.9, gives them the torque, the grunt off the corner, and that's what Darren Law likes. This is what they don't like. Branson Patch backwards in the racetrack. See if he can get that Porsche restarted, refired, and out of the way. Flame out the back.
There's that flame out I'm telling you about, but that's a very dangerous position to be in, headed into traffic right here. Watch this onboard replay. We'll see what happens.
Up here to the turn 3 complex.
Very tight corner. He just got nailed and spun right around.
I believe that was JC France in the number 59 Brumos car.
Yeah, pushed him right out of his way.
A little impatient, wanted to get through there. Said, well, hey, I'm coming through. When you've got Andy Wallace in your rearview mirror, you want to go too, because you know Andy Wallace is coming.
At the beginning of the show, I said controlled aggression. That's what I'm talking about, controlled aggression. You can't do those things and hope to win.
Well, the view that Christian Fittipaldi likes to see, no cars right behind him. That's the view from the 54 car as he looks back down the racetrack. He leads here at Homestead Miami Speedway. We'll be right back after this. Back at the Grand Prix of Miami, you're looking out the back of the number 54 Kodak Easy Share car of Christian Fittipaldi. Second place, dropping well back. Fittipaldi doing a great job here today. On board with Joey Hand, who led the GT class earlier on the second full course yellow. They took the opportunity to come in for fuel. But in the meantime, as he was working his way back up just moments ago, this happened. On board with Joey Hand.
Again, right at the end of the long straight, the hairpin corner. Oh, just gets on the throttle a little too aggressively right there. Around it goes. No damage done, but look at all those miles he just passed it. Now he has to do all over again.
You know, that's really interesting, Dorsey. We saw the GT piece earlier, and Calvin talked about, and Mike Fitzgerald talked about, the fact that that Porsche, a little higher off the ground, had ABS. The Porsche has ABS, but does not have traction control. The BMW has traction control, but does not have ABS. And the thing that was interesting there, in that spin, you heard Joey Hand go into the throttle. The spin happened under throttle. Shouldn't that traction control help alleviate that?
Well, it should have indeed, and that's if he has it turned on, or, you know, I guess if he had a switch possibly that he can turn it off if he wants to. It definitely was a throttle-induced spin, no question about that. But again, this racetrack is tremendously sandy. We see a little smug out of the 19 right there. Good shot from one of the Lexuses. That's Luis Diaz, the 01 car. Chip Ganassi's car. This is a battle for 4th place, coming on to NASCAR 3 right now.
Diaz
Really
doing
quick.
a good job. He qualified that car 4th, started 4th, and is running 5th right now, but a great job by him. He's really come a long way, and you got to believe that for a young driver like Luis Diaz to be paired with somebody like Scott Pruitt, what a tremendous opportunity, not only to drive with Ganassi, which Diaz did last year, but to have the tutelage of somebody like Pruitt helping you out. It's going to be a big boost for him. Look at the dirt on the outside.
You saw Diaz take a lower line through NASCAR 4, and the reason I think he's doing that is to get some clean air on his nose. He's got 2 Daytona prototypes in front of him. Both of those opening up a big wall of air, no question about that.